Batman is the first major comic book movie event of 2022, and it is directed by Matt Reeves. Matt Reeves is the one who directed the final two Planet of the Apes films of that trilogy. He also directed Let Me In and Cloverfield, so at this point I feel like you should know who Matt Reeves is. This film stars Robert Pattinson as a brand new iteration, a brand new portrayal of the Dark Knight, the Caped Crusader, aka Batman, set in his own Earth, in his own universe. It is set apart from the DCEU, the main continuity. This film also stars Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman. It stars Colin Farrell as Penguin, Paul Dano as the Riddler, John Turturro as Carmine Falcone. I mean, this is a very well put together cast. It also stars Andy Serkis as Alfred. And last but not least, it stars Jeffrey Wright as Jim Gordon. And so to set this movie up the best way I can without spoilers, Batman in this movie, portrayed by Robert Pattinson, has been Batman for 2 years now. He and Gordon have been working together. All of a sudden, a new serial killer shows up in Gotham. It's the Riddler. And so he starts killing a bunch of people and leaving clues at these scenes and writing to the Batman so that he can solve these clues. So now Batman has to put on his world's greatest detective hat as he and Gordon navigate through a maze of murder and mystery as they try to figure out what the Riddler wants, what he's after, and also a way to stop all of these killings from happening. Batman was obviously one of my most anticipated films of 2022. You guys should know that. I had a video where I had my most anticipated movies of 2022, and the Batman was definitely one of the first movies I talked about in that video. Obviously, I'm a huge Batman fan, and I was very excited to see Robert Pattinson and his take on Batman and see what Matt Reeves could bring to this that would make it feel a little bit different from what we've seen before. We've seen Batman come in a lot of different flavors and a lot of different styles over the years, but I am here to tell you definitively, you ain't never seen Batman like this. You've seen Batman like this probably in the comics. You've seen Batman like this in graphic novels, maybe some animation. You ain't never seen Batman the way that he was portrayed and the way that his world was portrayed in this movie, because holy shit. It's just hard to put into words what this movie was and what this movie did for me. It's just, whew. Let me try to maintain my composure while I talk about all of the things this movie did well, which it's a very long list of things that this movie did well. For starters, this movie is exactly what Matt Reeves wanted to make. A movie that has such expansive and immersive world building while at the same time telling a very personal and emotional Batman story. But it's also a detective story. You know, Matt Reeves wanted to tell a story that focused on Batman being the world's greatest detective. We've had detective elements for sure in some of the other Batman movies, but we haven't had just like a straight up like 2.5 or 3 hour detective thriller where it's really all about Batman and the investigative elements that make him Batman. Put you into Batman's head and you're just going with him and Gordon on this journey trying to figure out what's going on. The detective and the investigative stuff that goes on in this movie, it is mesmerizing. It's also a complex story. You have to pay attention or you might miss a couple of things. Then when you get to the tone and the atmosphere of this movie is just very bleak and heavy and dark and kind of depressing. It extends to Gotham, which this is like one of my favorite portrayals of Gotham as a city on film that we've ever seen. Gotham as a city is in the gutter in this movie. There is a sense of hopelessness and pervasiveness that just permeates the entire atmosphere surrounding Gotham City, surrounding the people in Gotham City. The corruption, the evil, the lack of good that is in Gotham was conveyed very well in this movie, not just through the dark contrast of the cinematography, the amazing lighting that Matt Reeves was able to pull off for this movie, the way that he uses shadows, the way he uses it to enhance all of the environments. Also, shout out to the production design for this movie. It is chef's kiss. Robert Pattinson, I don't know yet if he is my favorite Batman, but he is one of my favorites, absolutely. Like, I have to say that definitively after having seen the film. He is incredible in this movie. He is badass and menacing, certainly when he needs to be. Obviously, the investigative hat is on and Batman's intelligence is displayed at a high level in this movie. As high or maybe higher than maybe you've seen it in a lot of other depictions of this character. And this is a younger Batman, so while he is kind of, you know, brooding and he's very, you know, on top of things, he's also a Batman that makes mistakes. And while he kicks a ton of ass in the movie, let's put that to the side right now. But even while he does all of that, he does make mistakes and he does doubt himself and he does get his ass, he's not invulnerable, he's not infallible. And I think that's what this movie does a good job at showing. Pattinson just brings this simmering intensity and rage to the performance that I was hoping I would get out of him. And after having seen it, I want all the Twilight jokes deaded. They should have been deaded a long time ago, but this movie definitively, you will never look at Robert Pattinson the same after seeing this movie. Robert Pattinson, as I affectionately have called him for a few years, that's what he is. He is Pattinson right now. He is the Bat. I love the partnership between Jim Gordon and Batman. They're already the perfect duo. Jeffrey Wright, I shouldn't have called him Jim Wright. Jeffrey Wright is really, really good as Gordon. Zoe Kravitz is sexy and cunning and vulnerable and surprisingly has a much more emotional stake in this story than I would have thought. Pattinson's Batman, they just have tremendous chemistry. The way that the sparks are flying off the screen between these two whenever they're around each other. Sometimes it's sparks flying in a very confrontational way, and sometimes it's sparks flying as in, you know, he gonna get them cheeks on top of the Batmobile eventually. Two of my favorite elements of this movie are actually in the villains. Colin Farrell is obviously unrecognizable as the Penguin, and he has some of the best moments of this movie. He sets up as a very interesting villain going forward into this Bat universe. Whatever you want to say about the design for Riddler, whatever you want to say about Paul Dano, you cannot say that he did not kill and crush this role. Absolutely 100%. Riddler is kind of terrifying in this movie, and he's not just like a mindless serial killer. He obviously has a method to his madness. He has a lot of things that he's putting in motion in this movie that Batman and Gordon and everybody else are trying to catch up to. The intelligence, the riddles, the puzzles, the mystery, it all ties together. It enhances Riddler, and it's also done with excellent writing for his character because his character has a lot that is pushing him to this point. He has a lot that would explain why he's doing what he's doing in this movie. The action sequences are in camera and filmed brilliantly. A lot of times Matt Reeves keeps things in frame, not a lot of cuts. There is a Batmobile chase in this movie that is, good God, man. Batmobile Chase in this movie is one of the greatest things that I've ever seen. And I know that in this review, I sound like I'm gushing and there's a lot of one of the greatest and the greatest ever stuff that I'm saying. But guys, it's because the movie is as legit as it comes. Batman has some great fighting moments, some great gadget moments, but I will caution you that this movie is not an action movie. This is a thinking man's Batman movie. So if you go into this movie expecting an action movie, you're gonna be disappointed. Is there great action? For sure. There's great action in the movie when it is there, but just adjust your expectations at the door a little bit. So many little Batman-isms and Easter eggs and references that help build this world up that Matt Reeves has created, some of which I can't really talk about in this video because that would be a spoiler. But rest assured, that spoiler video, I'm going to be talking about pretty much everything. In fact, the spoiler video is probably gonna be longer than the movie. The movie's 3 hours long. I might make this shit 5 hours. That's how much there is to talk about. There are some things that I think are gonna be a problem for some people going into this movie. Some people's enjoyment of this film might depend on what they look for in a Batman movie. If you're looking for action hero Batman, I feel like you might be disappointed. If you're put off a little bit at the newness of this Batman, maybe you're just not feeling it, and maybe you're comparing him to Ben Affleck or some of the other Batmans before, there might be little things about their Batman that you may prefer over this Batman. Some people are gonna be put off by the runtime. Some people are gonna be put off by just the heaviness of the atmosphere, the darkness of it, the way that it just consumes your soul and grabs you and doesn't let go. It does have great emotion, and it does kind of lead towards hope at one point in the movie. For most of the movie, you're just sitting here and just like, fuck, Gotham, Batman, these murders, the Riddler, it's all just so dour and it's so bleak. It's just hard to smile about anything in this movie. Having said that, as a big Batman fan, I was smiling like a fucking idiot while I was watching it. In regards to problems that I personally had with the movie, I can say that it does feel like there are a couple of contradictions in the movie. One is with Batman specifically, and it's like a very small little nitpicky thing. Then there's another small inconsistency I found with maybe the Gotham City Police Department and how they were portrayed in this movie at different points in the movie. And also I would say that while the third act of this movie goes for some big things and there's some big action, it also is trying to keep within the themes of the story and the character, and it does end on kind of an epic and beautiful note, but it does feel like the finale is kind of dragging its feet a little bit to get there. It does feel like some stuff you could argue are tacked on and maybe a little bit extra. Maybe they didn't need to be in a movie like this. In the end, it maybe felt like the movie wasn't sure how it wanted to end, but then the movie ended and you're like, holy shit, can I have more? The Batman is the exact movie that I wanted it to be. It's the movie I expected Matt Reeves to deliver when he first got brought onto this project. It has incredible action and great performances, amazing cinematography. The musical score by Michael Giacchino is one of the best, if not the best, Batman score that I have ever heard. The themes for each character are not only great, but also perfectly placed. The instruments that are used to depict these characters emotionally as they're going through different scenes, like, I loved all of that shit. I can't have this video be too long, so I'm gonna wrap it up here. The Batman is an absolute masterpiece of the comic book genre, and I'm going to give this one the highest rating on my channel, Superman Prime. And after having seen the movie, what is your favorite Batman of all time? Put that in the comment section down below. Please like and subscribe to the Superfan Show, and if you like what you see, tell me how you feel, and stay tuned to hear more from the Man of Steel. Peace.